Welcome to your City Commission meeting. Please turn off or silence all cell phones during the meeting. Meetings are televised every day on Channel 2 at 6 p.m. and midnight and available for viewing on YouTube. Call to order this meeting. First is up is Pledge Allegiance, followed by silent meditation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to start off by saying, please be gentle on me tonight. This is my first meeting as Mayor Pro Tem, so welcome everybody. We'll start with old business. So first is up is consideration of previous meeting minutes. Minutes from the January 16th to 2024 special meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes for the meeting of the special meeting and the study session for Tuesday, January 16th.
Thank you. Can I second?
Second.
Thank you. And we'll start voting with Mayor Batter. No, I mean Commissioner Batter. Commissioner Batter.
Thank you. Yes.
Aye.
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 She got me all flustered.
Aye.
Okay. So now just say 5-0. Okay. Motion carried 5-0. All right. Second is second consideration ordinance. The second consideration ordinance number 8233, allowing a special use permit for a child care center at 1913 Choctaw Street. This will be a roll call vote.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, there have been no changes since the first reading, and staff has not received any further comment from the public, and so it's before you tonight for final consideration.
All right. We'll take a roll call vote starting with Mayor Martin.
Aye.
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 Motion passes, or carries. All right, and we'll move on to new business. This is a time where we have public comment. Public comment is limited to 2 to 3 minutes, and no action will be taken by the commission on public comments at this time. Please come state your name and your address. A sign-up sheet will be provided in the commission chambers for anyone wishing to speak. Did we have anyone sign up tonight?
We do. We've got 2 patrons. First up will be Louis Klemp.
Okay.
Senior citizen walking up, that doesn't come out with 2 or 3 minutes.
Hi, Mr. Klemp.
These are for you guys. There's only 5. I don't give one anything.
Just give them to Sarah.
I don't give them to the, anymore. When I did the, Steamship Arabia, the guy that was in charge downstairs didn't do what he's supposed to do. And that's what happens. This is Louis Adolph Klemp Jr., 1816 Pine Ridge Drive, Leavenworth, Kansas. I want to thank you, and I won't finish today, so I'll be back in a couple weeks. And then that'll be another couple weeks, so it's no big deal. I've got about 2 or 3 items that I've just picked up daily, and I like going to the county now because we talk first and then we leave. In the old days, we talk last, and got to pick up 4 or 5 more items to talk about because of what they were going through. 2 of the subjects, one of them is 407 Maple Avenue. Now, what citizen outside here even thought about 407 Maple Avenue? You know what it is? You know where it is? Mm-hmm. That's where the fire was, and you got a guy in California, 2 fires, yeah. Probably some homeless living in there and started another fire, who knows what. And so you listen to all that and you say, that's interesting. You know if he's paid his property tax? No action, that's all right, because you don't know about his property tax. Nobody in the city level probably investigated it. Here you got some old geezer, born in 1938, and he investigates everything. Well, he didn't pay his 2020 property tax, this guy, and he paid 21 and 23, and he hadn't paid 21, 22, and he hadn't paid 23. Pass that on. That is an avenue to get a hold of the gentleman, and if you can't get a hold of him, you sell his property. It goes on down the road. First topic is, main topic is NBC. Anybody ever listen to NBC? They cut Stroud off the other night. Anybody know who Stroud is? He's quarterback for the Texas team. Nice, handsome, hate to say it, black gentleman. Good quarterback. They cut him off. They mumbled over him, and he was thanking Jesus and God. Isn't that amazing? Thanking Jesus and God. Now the county just, they have a silent prayer. To me, you pray out loud. I've been praying more, and not only for, the one gal said, you pray for family, pray for history, no, family, faith, friends, and some other subject. I thought it was a good one. Here is your history. Now, when I say you, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the city commission. See this? How do you like that book? You ever look through that book? I don't think your clerk, you couldn't find one, could you? Or maybe she can't comment. Did you find one? Oh my God. Yes. You accidentally told me you didn't. But it was good.
That's three.
She probably wouldn't have looked for one if I hadn't brought the subject up.
Mr. Klimt, before you start opening that book, maybe it's time's up, maybe you can share that book with us next time.
Say again?
Your time is up, maybe
Okay,
you can
that's all
share
right.
that book with us next time you
Okay.
come back.
Well, I got Jesus in there, and that was probably more important than the history of Leavenworth. And it's probably more important than the total history of putting a toll on the bridge to bring in $5 million a year for property tax. Of course, taxpayers, they don't care about it.
Next up.
Next up, we have Mr. Jeff Culbertson.
Good evening, Commissioners and staff. Thank you for your service and thank you for hearing me tonight. I'm here to ask if you would write a letter of support for the return of our local ad valorem taxes, or LAVTR funds, from the state of Kansas. Over 50 years ago, the state, the cities and the counties realized there were too much weight being put on property taxes. So they decided to create a new law that would shift some of the weight off property taxes and put it on a sales tax. 1.5% of the sales tax you and I already pay to the state goes into the LAVTR fund still today. But when the state got into financial trouble in 2003, they decided to just keep the LAVTR funds and not give it to the counties or the city. They didn't remove the 1.5% sales tax that was promised to the counties. They still collect it today. They just keep it instead of letting us use it to lower property taxes. They used a report from the Kansas Policy Institute saying the program must not be working because property taxes were still going up. What the report didn't show was taxes were going up because valuations were at an all-time high, not because the LAVTR program wasn't working. If they would return LAVTR funds, it would amount to almost $4 million a year for Leavenworth County. That would equal about 4 full mil reduction in the county's mill levy. The city of Leavenworth would also see a substantial amount they could use to lower property taxes as well. We understand the LAVTR funds won't completely fix high property taxes, but it will make a significant difference, and it's a step in the right direction. I have letters already from almost every city and county in our surrounding area. I'm here to answer any questions you might have and ask for a letter of support to be directed to the State of Kansas Taxation Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming, Mr. Culbertson. Okay, next up is general items. We need acceptance of land for public utilities for Dollar Tree, Leavenworth final plat.
Turn this over to Julie Hurley, the Director of Planning and Community Development.
Okay, thank you. As you said, this is just the acceptance of the dedication of land for public utilities for part of a Dollar Tree Leavenworth final plat. This plat was heard by the Planning Commission on December 4th. This is a plat of a portion of the undeveloped portion of the Great Western Manufacturing property over on 4th Street. It's being sold to the Dollar Tree Corporation to build a new store at that site. So the plat has been approved by the Planning Commission, and the City Commission just needs to accept the dedication of land for easements for public utilities.
Make a quick note, this is a use that's allowed by right, by zoning, and so in the city of Leavenworth, if it's allowed by zoning, the commission, we approve the plat, and then we accept public improvement properties, and that's the only role in this situation that the city commission plays.
So we'll have 2 Dollar Trees.
Yes, sir.
Does anyone have any questions?
Is this gonna be a Dollar Tree, or is this, yeah, it's probably gonna be a Dollar Tree, not a DG Market, right? Dollar Tree.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other question? All right.
Nope.
No.
I'll just need a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the acceptance of dedication of land for public utility as part of the Dollar Tree. Leavenworth, final plat.
Second. All right. We'll begin voting with Commissioner Bowder.
Aye.
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 Aye?
All right, motion passes.
Aye.
Oh, I forgot Griff. Sorry, Griff.
Thank you.
All right, thank
No
you.
problem.
All right, recommendations for revisions to the personnel policy manual.
This will be handled by Alana Lanter, the Human Resources Director.
Madam Mayor, Pro Tem, Commissioners, presented for your review and approval this evening is changes to the personnel manual, specifically to Section 2. These changes are submitted by staff to update the policy to be more consistent with our form of government in which the city manager oversees the administrative operations and implements policies, and also allow for more timely updates to the personnel manual revisions. Most of the revisions that we do submit for personnel policy changes come as a matter of housekeeping items to either clarify or update policies or clarify the intent of those policies. For example, approving or putting in place revisions and requirements for eligibility for city manager holiday, making revisions to our benefit changes as they occur every year with the updates that we make during renewal time. We have increased tuition reimbursement to basically accord with inflation, going up from $2,000 to $2,500 per year, updating the obviously commissioner and mayor term and listing for each year, staff changes as they occur, et cetera. So those are the types of changes that we're presenting. Section 2-3 would specifically revise the last sentence to notify as approved and adopted by the city manager versus the Leavenworth City Commission as it reads now. And Section 2-4 would remove a section and then add any significant revisions and or administrative updates by the city manager would be summarized and provided to the commission so that you are still aware of those changes as they occur. Those 2 changes, we have reviewed ordinances. City clerk has also reviewed any of the revisions or code of ordinances that we have to make sure this is not in violation and verified that there is nothing that would prevent these changes from happening.
So how did it happen before? Any little change you made would have to come to the commission?
Correct.
Right. So the commission, for example, of the student, the tuition reimbursement, you set the budget line item for that. But if we saw in the course of the year that tuition had gone up and it was being underused, if we wanted to change it from 2,000 maximum to 2,500, not going over our budget authority, those small little changes within how we operate each day would have to be done at a city commission meeting. The changes that we'll make those, and then I'll notify the commission of any changes continuing that go in the personnel policy manual. We certainly can't change anything related to expenditure authority or anything like that.
Of course. So those items would still come through budget, and anything requiring an ordinance would still come to the commission as an ordinance approval as well. Absolutely. Sounds good. Makes sense.
Any other questions? Nope. All right, I'll take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the proposed revisions that would be effective immediately.
Second?
All right, thank you. All right, we'll begin voting with Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
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 All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, number 5, consider approval of contract change order number 1 for 2023 pavement management project.
This will be Brian Faust, the Director of Public Works on this side.
Hello.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. The issue tonight is to consider contract change order 1, which is actually the final change order for the 2023 crack sealing and microsurfacing component of our pavement management plan. In March of 2023, the City Commission approved a construction contract with Vance Brothers for the program. Vance was given notice to proceed in September, and acceptance was on December 12th of 2023. The 23 budget includes $2 million total for all components of the pavement management plan. That's crack sealing and microsurfacing, that's mill and overlay, as well as one of the city parking lots. The crack sealing and microsurfacing program included the streets listed in your packet. The award of the contract was for $507,000, with $67,000 under the engineer's estimate for the project. Engineering department came up with a list of additional streets to add to put the total closer to what the engineer's estimate was. Upon completion of the project, we did a final measurement of all the material placed and came up with actual measured quantities. For the microsurfacing project, the quantities were slightly higher than originally estimated. The final project cost with the additional streets ended up at $580,845.92. This is $73,055.88 over the awarded contract, roughly $5,000 over the engineer's estimate. Staff recommends the City Commission approve change order 1, which is the final change order, with Vance Brothers for the crack sealing and microsurfacing in the amount of $73,055.88. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
This was still under the annual pavement management budget. It's just extra streets that we were able to do as bids came in.
Yes, that's a good thing.
We look at the budget's $2 million, and each year with a $2 million budget, we can do less. Prices go up, we can do less, and so it's important to us to try to maximize that and to get as close as we can to that $2 million, so we have the biggest impact we can.
So the following streets that you have on the front, the top there with the, under the bid one, and then you're additionally gonna add the second level here, those are also getting done? Or those?
Yeah, actually, what we did is the commission awarded because the bids came in so good, on that first attachment, we did all those streets.
Okay,
And then we actually added several more.
okay.
So,
So do these go, how do residents know that these are gonna happen? Do you just do it, you show up one day?
No, just depends.
Okay.
Brian can go through it. So we do publicize, because the commission approves, and then we put it out, so then it appears. And then if there's a disruption, then we let people know. But if there's not more than a day's disruption, then yes, they would just show up and do the work. But these streets are public as when we award the bid.
Okay,
And the one nice thing about on the microsurfacing, because a lot of these streets are in our residential areas where people park on the street, and we have to have all the cars moved ahead of time before we can do the work. And so we'll actually put notices on doors, and then on cars if, they're in danger of being towed, we let people know that way.
okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, I'll take a motion.
I moved approval of the change order number 1 with Vance Brothers for the crack sealing microsurfacing in the amount not to exceed $73,055.88.
Second.
I second that.
Okay. All right, we'll begin voting with Commissioner Bowder.
Aye.
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 All right, thank you, motion passes. All right, thank you. All right, first consideration ordinance amending chapter 8 for the animal control and regulation of the Leavenworth Code of Ordinances. Oh, wait, no, am I wrong? Sorry, agree with the Guidance Center for Mental Health.
Gonna have a tough time explaining
I'm
that.
sorry. I told you guys you have to give me grace tonight. This is my first time in this seat,
So this will be Chief Kitchens, and I will let the chief introduce our guest tonight.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to welcome tonight Dr. Warrens, who is the CEO of the Guidance Center of Leavenworth, and Ashley Phillips, who is the Clinical Director at the Guidance Center.
So they don't know about dogs.
They do not know about dogs. They do a little bit.
Emotional support.
Emotional support.
Probably know a little bit. Madam Mayor and Commission, the Police Department is requesting the City Commission authorize an agreement with the Guidance Center of Leavenworth to establish a mental health co-responder program. The issue of mental health is very difficult and complicated. Until very recently, the last couple of years, we've seen some pretty significant cuts to the mental health services available to the mental health community. As a result of that, people who had been getting services essentially have been pushed out into the community and have been the responsibility of police, They've ended up in jail and sometimes the emergency room. Those are not adequate services and equipped to deal with these kinds of circumstances. For example, in the last 3 years, the Leavenworth Police Department has responded to 302 calls for service that would be described as a mental health call. And I will give you some definition and framework for that as we move forward. Someone calls and says that they have taken actual overt steps to injure themselves. They've taken pills, they've cut themselves, the tragedy of a firearm, something like that. They are threatening to do that or having suicidal thoughts. They are having suicidal thoughts in addition to threatening to harm other people. Their family or friends are calling on their behalf and reporting to us. And then in very large portions of these cases that we go to, there is a combination of the mental health crisis in association with substance abuse. Oftentimes it's alcohol or drugs or both in combination with mental health. These kinds of calls are incredibly difficult and complicated. They're dangerous. They require a tremendous amount of resources from the police department, oftentimes as many as 4 or 5 officers, which can be an entire shift. If it escalates, sometimes it involves the SWAT team, just a tremendous amount of resources, crisis negotiators, everything that we have to apply to that to mitigate the crisis, to try and keep everybody safe, and then get the person help. A significant component of that, again, is combining that with alcohol or substance abuse. That makes it exponentially harder to deal with and mitigate and keep people safe, okay? The mental health responder program is designed to help us expand our tool bag so that we can help mitigate these. This is a pilot program that we're creating in a collaborative effort between the police department and the guidance center and their professionals so that we can try and keep everybody safe. Police officers get a very basic elemental training on mental health. We can teach them what PTSD is, or we can teach them what depression is, or we can teach them what schizophrenia is, but it doesn't really go beyond that. Having a highly trained professional mental health person at the scene with us during a crisis, we believe is going to help us expand our opportunities and put ourselves in a position to mitigate that in a much better way, in a much safer way. And in addition to that, help with those follow-up issues in the days that come after the crisis, because we can mitigate it, but it's that also that component of the program that we think is going to be vital is those follow-up services to get that person the help that they need, or the services that they need, or the infrastructure built to help them so we don't have to go back, which is something that we do sometimes, where we deal with some of the same people over and over again. So I'll talk a little bit about how we design the program. The mental health co-responder will be an employee of the guidance center, but they will be assigned at the Leavenworth Police Department. Essentially a 40-hour work week, mostly in the evening or weekends when the most likely opportunity would be for us to have to go to a call. We've outlined those things in the job description that was included in your packet if you have specific questions about that. I'll just talk about a few of the highlights of the job description that was put together. It says to collaborate with the police department, crisis co-responders in the community with or with the request of the police department officers. Duties may include crisis intervention, safety planning, service assessment and referral, reference, resource navigation, and brief case management services to assist with the continuity of care. They will also, for example, assist with mental health training to include what's called CIT or crisis intervention training. That is increasing the level of training for officers that's very specific to these mental health calls. Ensure that all the interventions are documented and tracked appropriately according to all agency standards and government regulations. Maintaining timely documentation, understanding the data collection is vital to the goal of identifying the service needs of the community. So before I proceed further and talk about the budget, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Warren and Ms. Phillips so that they could comment from the Guidance Center's perspective about how important I feel like they think this program would be. So Dr. Warren, or Ashley, who goes first?
Yeah, I'll start off. Thank you so much, Chief Kitchens. Good evening. Thank you so much for allowing us to have the time here to talk with you about this program. We are very excited about it. Chief Kitchens did a great job describing what we want it to look like for this pilot year here in Leavenworth, but a little bit of history and context. This model has been around for over 30 years. It started, first program being in 1992 in the United States. Thank you. And we have seen it expand globally. So in the UK, Canada, Australia, and then even our surrounding counties, people in the state, Missouri, we will not be the first to invent this program, but we will absolutely lean on to our partners who have gone before us and implemented this. For context, this program has really taken off, even in the state of Kansas. Some start in their pilot year with one co-responder, and then they start to actually get demographics and the clinical data to support there's a much larger need. So we have surrounding counties that have 25 co-responders because the demand is there. What Chief Kitchens described, and to reiterate, our main goals is to help reduce the time that officers spend on a crisis call for mental health. They could be out there trying to connect them with services when they could be responding to another call that is not mental health related. Our co-responder will be able to ride with them and then utilize our services that we already have at the Guidance Center, including our recovery support program, our other crisis, like crisis stabilization program, where we have sobering units, and we also have inpatient beds so that they can stay and be safe if they're having suicidal ideation. All the things that is too much to put on officers because their demand is already so high in volume. And so in this position, as mentioned, we would like to pilot this program for this year. Chief Kitchens will talk more about the future possibilities and then look at where we need to expand our resources with the Guidance Center and the police department. The last thing I'll mention, he noted that this would be a well-trained behavioral health specialist, licensed social worker who will be able to do suicide risk assessments, help them get in treatment for opioid use, help them be able to contact their support systems so that officers can feel good about leaving someone and not worried that their safety is jeopardized, or taking them into the jail just for that protection, or to the ER when they might not need that. I could go on and on and on, so I will pause. Dr. Warren's anything to add or anything to state?
Yes, so what Chief Kitchens just told you about us being underfunded, I've been the medical director at the Guidance Center since 2011, and for the majority of that time we have been underfunded, and by that I don't mean the city of Leavenworth, I mean the state of Kansas. But this is a great time to be working at the Guidance Center because we are expanding, and we're expanding with new services, and so we wanted to prioritize working with law enforcement. We approached Chief Kitchens approached us, we approached Sheriff Dedeke approached us. We have established a jail liaison position with the Sheriff's Department that's going to be working with individuals at the jail, and this would be our second position down at the Justice Center, which I say that with pride. I mean, to have 2 of our positions down at the Justice Center would be awesome to help work with these individuals. So we have no concerns with working with law enforcement. We feel supported by Leavenworth Police Department, and we feel very willing to support Leavenworth Police Department. We feel like this is going to go very well. We feel like this position, when they are stationed there, they will help with initial contact. Someone with a mental health framework will help those first interactions go well. But this is only one individual, so they will not always be there. But that doesn't mean that when they report to work the next day and hear from law enforcement about the contacts that they've had the night before, this individual can go out and try to work with those individuals to make sure they don't get called back out to those situations over and over again, which I think is something that Chief Kitchens was talking about. Yeah. So we feel good. We feel good with the city of Leavenworth being a partner. We appreciate the consideration of some of these opioid settlement funds. We feel like Chief Kitchens is an excellent partner. We feel very willing to go at risk. A portion of this position is not funded. It will be funded by the Guidance Center. So we feel very comfortable going at risk with Chief Kitchens in this position because it's going to be so vital and valuable to the community.
So I'll close the presentation. You have probably seen across the country some circumstances in which police have responded to mental health calls for service, and that there have been tragic outcomes. And so at its core, what we're trying to do is give ourselves the best opportunity to avoid that. And we feel very strongly that this is the best way that we can do that. So I'll turn the attention now to the funding portion and the proposal for the funding portion. I'll bring your attention to the City of Leavenworth project will be funded with the use of opioid settlement funds. On October 14th of 2021, City Commission adopted Resolution B 2302, which allowed the City of Leavenworth to receive any funds associated with the opioid litigation that was the last 18 months, we have received several settlement payments that total $109,128.83. That remains in a separate account, and it's been encumbered for this particular project. It doesn't go to anything else pending tonight's discussion. We are informed that the whole settlement was going to be 18 years of funding, and so the first 2 years have already taken place. So we believe that moving forward, the city of Leavenworth will receive 16 more years of funding of opioid settlements. That's how it was structured. We are not informed, however, how much. And so we've been very slow to make any decisions or commitments until we get a better sense of where we are. You've seen in the package, there's been 3 different allocations, but they've sort of been all over the place. $8,800, $83,000, $17,000. So we just sort of put that aside, preparing to try and make this proposal and put this project together to make sure that it's properly funded. So you also see in early of 2022, we saw the instructions that came from how we're allowed to use that money, and we're all in agreement that this program would be an allowable expense for those funds. And I'll answer whatever specific questions you have about that. That was included in the policy. So, for the funding structure, this is what we are proposing and asking for your authority. Would be to enter into agreement for the city of Leavenworth to provide the Guidance Center of Leavenworth an annual funding to hire a mental health co-responder. The allocation for 2024 would be $50,000. Moving forward, it would call for a minimum of $25,000 to $50,000 in the next 2 years. We have that we have the $50,000, we would have $25,000, and then another $25,000. Now, I expect over the course of the next year that we're going to get additional funds like we have. But to ensure that we don't oversell what we have, that's how much we're sure we have. We expect going forward that we're going to do that. And as we indicated, the first year, we're pretty committed to that. That would give us an opportunity to ensure that the program is working and that it's doing what we expected it to do. That'll give us an opportunity to see how much more money we're going to be getting. As I understand it, there's other litigation cases going on, not just one, so there might be more. But again, I don't want to make that promise that we're not sure about that. That we're sure we have that money, it's in the account, it's set aside and encumbered in the event that this proposal is approved. And so that's how we put that together. Just reiterate that this entire project was the efforts of the police department, the guidance center. Mr. Waters was instrumental in putting together the draft. Our finance director was incredibly helpful in terms of looking through the rules to make sure that the financing structure is appropriate, it's all an allowable expense. And so that's our presentation, that's our proposal. So again, I'll finally ask one more time for the City Commission to authorize the City of Leavenworth to enter into an agreement with the Guidance Center of Leavenworth to establish a mental health co-responder program. And we'll answer questions about this or animals if you want.
So walk me, you said it's nights and weekends because that's primarily, so walk me through that. What, is someone just going to be sitting there waiting for a mental health call, or is this person at home and then they go out to the scene? Are they not at the scene? I mean, what's that look like? Are they in civilian wear? Are they?
Great question. Right now, as we're planning this out, they would be at the station. They would be doing administrative tasks, follow-up calls. We have office space at the Guidance Center too if they need to meet with a client and we want to do it off-site. They would keep their time busy helping make sure that we have trainings provided, getting to know officers, debriefing, processing as appropriate, and then be available for the calls. So when they get radioed, typical co-responder models, they're wearing the vest, they have the gear, they'll be going through our training and all of our procedures, but then they're going through all of the police departments as well. And so that way they are equipped with the items that they need, and the safety precautions that they will also have to be trained on that the police department would provide as well. We do have other positions that are evening, weekend positions. They do cost a little bit more salary-wise because it's not as desirable of a role. But we have made that known in our conversations that that's something that we're willing to, we want some personnel in there who is qualified and able to do that schedule. As we talked about, that is where most of the calls we perceive are coming from. That might change depending on the statistics that we gather, and it might need to shift to a Sunday through Thursday. But that will all be noted for that first pilot year, and then moving forward, we'll discuss.
So I'm going to take the issue of the scene. It is my expectation that as often as possible, the principal idea of this program is to have this person at the scene with us at 9 o'clock tonight. If someone calls and is threatening for whatever reason, we want that person there available with us so that we can have that as a tool. We've done some soul searching in the law enforcement profession in the last 5 years, and we fully acknowledge that uniforms and lights and sirens and guns and all of those things can be an irritant in these circumstances. So if there's the opportunity to do that where someone else is doing it in a much more skilled setting, then that's terrific. With one caveat, we're going because I'm not letting anybody get hurt. They're dangerous, very often involving a weapon or a threat of a weapon. So we have to go. But if we have the opportunity to turn it over to that person, that's the idea. But yes, it is my expectation. I think we want them there, and that's one of the primary purposes of the program.
So if they're on the curb, the counselor would sit next to them on the curb type thing, or would you bring them in to someplace safer?
So theoretically, okay, they're going to call 911 and make some assertion one way or the other. We're going to evaluate that in terms of the danger that exists. If someone just calls and says, I'm depressed and I want to talk to somebody, that's a different level of response.
Sure.
If someone says, I have a gun and I'm going to threaten to kill myself, that's an entirely different response. So that determination will be based on the initial facts.
Okay.
We'll get there and make some assessment. The most important thing is keeping everybody safe, and then we'll make decisions there. But if that's what it takes, and that's okay, we're all in agreement with that, that's the idea. It's just kind of make the best decision, the safest decision, to apply the most help to the person in the best way that we can.
Okay.
I think it's
Okay,
needed.
when you say
Definitely needed.
you're going to have all the same equipment, you're not going to be armed.
No, correct. Same equipment, thank you for catching that. We have acknowledged that other co-responder models, they have their walkie-talkies, they have the safety vest, they have identification that aligns them with the police department. As we continue to collaborate in this, we want to know the needs of the community. What Chief Kitchens has mentioned also is that sometimes coming in with the vest, the lights, it accelerates certain situations. We will assess that as we get the call, and then the officers are in collaboration with our staff to make sure that it's appropriate that they respond. So we want them to understand that we are with the police department. They're not going to be showing up in street clothes necessarily because we need them to be either recognized as a guidance center employee, someone safe that they can talk to in that moment. But as far as logistics of presentation, they can do the ride-along, they can come in a separate car. Models across the state have a variety of different options. And going back to the original question too of the structure of this, some have co-responders on shift 24/7. We are not there yet. A goal that we might have to have depending on the need. And so that also changes some of these answers about timeframes and ride-alongs and whatnot.
Okay, let's take the ride along a little further. You've gotten there, you've calmed down whoever it is, and they were a threat to other people. So does the police officer ever allow you to be the one who stays there with the individual while he goes to another call?
Yeah, so there's a couple different options. We will not have a staff member alone present if there has been any concern to safety at any point. We know that we have a lot of guidance center clients that there's a lot of overlap there, so we might already have rapport with this individual and understand that it is a safe scenario. But we also have mobile crisis, so that is a team of 2 who have a mobile crisis vehicle, and this co-responder would be in collaboration with the mobile crisis team so that if it's appropriate, if it's been deemed safe, that team can be dispatched to the scene after law enforcement has already established safety. If we need to take them to the ER, if we are trying to locate an inpatient bed for them, or they just need to go to their parents' home because they're going to be able to make sure that they're safe throughout the night with no suicidal ideation, we would have another team that we can call and support for that, so that safety, there's more than one person on the scene.
Okay. Tell me about liability. If something does happen to you or one of the other co-responders, who's liable?
So I think
The guidance center or the police department, city of Leavenworth?
So I think the best person to answer that question would be Mr. Waters, but I think we put that language within the agreement, the framework of the agreement, that we would be liable for the police department, the city employees. I think the guidance center is, separate. They're an employee of the guidance center, and so in terms of liability, but.
Yeah, it's in your packet.
That's correct. The agreement, number one, requires that they not be employees of the city of Leavenworth, they're employees of the guidance center. There are also indemnification and insurance requirements that are in place here in the agreement.
Thank you.
Do you have an individual in mind already?
We do and we don't. So we have been trying to keep this more contained within this group until we are able to solidify things. But we do have people that are interested. We have people that have had experience with the co-responder model, which we're hoping take interest when we're able to post this job position. But like I mentioned, this is throughout the state, there are many programs like this and individuals that would love to help compile it and help us really mold this to what we need it to be this first year. And so we're excited for those opportunities.
Yeah, excited.
Well, I read through the whole packet. I think it's great. It's long needed, so I'm looking forward to this.
Chief, you've been wanting this a long time.
Difficult issues.
Right,
Talking
so,
about some resources.
right, so. Does the commission have any other questions? Oh,
Mayor Martin?
Mayor Martin?
Ma'am.
What do you say?
He said no, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Well then, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we authorize the city of Leavenworth to enter into an agreement with the Guidance Center Leavenworth to establish a mental health co-responder program.
Second.
Third, fourth? All right. All right, I'll begin the voting with Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. I'm excited.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you
much.
as
We
well.
appreciate it. And we talk about animals.
Love that, so I'll be in touch.
And we may need you on the
We
stage.
might need you for the animals. I'm kidding.
Dr. Warren will take lead on that.
I'm kidding. Sorry about that. All right. Next up is the animals. First consideration ordinance amending Chapter 8, Animal Control and Regulation of the Leavenworth Code of Ordinances.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, lots of guests tonight. I'm joined by our city prosecutor, Kathleen Thompson, and our animal control supervisor, Les Klein. And so the police department is present this evening requesting the city commission place an ordinance on first consideration to make some changes to our municipal code of ordinances, Chapter 8, that deal with animal control and regulation. So very generally, in the latter part of 2023, they undertook a pretty comprehensive look at the animal control ordinances. It's been a little while since we've done that. A lot of it has to do with some updating of state statutes and old language, that sort of thing. But to start the discussion, I'll highlight several of the things that were brought to my attention that I think probably are worth some discussion or making sure that you know what we're talking about. The first of which would be principally to provide the judge in municipal court, Judge Fuller, with wider latitude in dealing with cases in which an animal has found to be in violation of one of the ordinances. Mostly we're talking about dogs and dog bite cases. There have been quite a few examples over the course of the last couple of years that we've had that have gone to court, and Judge Fuller wanted to do certain things but felt like the ordinance was a little bit restrictive. And so this paragraph that you see in the first thing essentially gives the judge, when he is making a decision about what to do with an animal, wide latitude, much more wide latitude. For example, there is a difference between a dog that's owned by a family and a little small 3-year-old kid starts tugging on the dog's tail when it's eating and it nips the kid. Okay, that's a dog bite, but we don't need to make a bunch of decisions about that are over the top versus a dog that gets out and seriously injures someone. We may need to make the decision, or he may need to make the decision to have that dog euthanized immediately. And so that's a last resort, but in his review of the language, he was a little uncomfortable with that. So he asked us to sort of take a look at that and provide. So that's what we came up with, is proposed would be to just give the judge a bunch of latitude in dealing with the case based on what the circumstances are to try and make the best decision possible for the outcome, to keep everybody safe from dog bites. So if you read that, that is, throughout all of the animal ordinances that relate to punishment or a decision by the judge, to give him a wide latitude to be able to make those decisions. And so we're recommending that proposal. On to the next part. We're also making a proposal to do some permitting for animals. If you look in the policy report, section 8-105. Unless regulated elsewhere in the city's zoning requirements, a person wanting to own or keep or harbor or shelter any of the following in a residentially zoned area shall be required to apply for a permit as stated in Article 5, which is a little bit later on. And this is livestock, which includes, but it's not limited to cattle, horses, mules, donkeys, goats, swine, llamas, alpacas, sheep, and or other herd animals. And if you read that, you kind of say to yourself, boy, that seems, but I bet you we've had all of those to deal with. And, it's our position sort of philosophically that a residential neighborhood is probably not the best place for most of those animals. We've also had some circumstances in terms of like a horse that is being housed in the community that got out. You might have seen us here a couple of 3 months ago where the horse was running down 4th Street and ended up on St. Mary's campus. We had a little trouble identifying the owner of that animal, and so a permitting process is the idea behind helping us identify and locating the owner and that sort of thing. Same thing for bees. Had a couple people that keep and do bees, and so that's okay as long as they meet their requirements and they have a permitting process, okay? And so that's the purpose behind that proposal. We have other permitting processes that already exist, like a kennel permit and that sort of thing, but this would be expanding that to help the animal control staff just deal with those kinds of things a little bit better, okay? The next part of it, regardless of whether or not we add more permitting to our process, our appeal process in the permitting is insufficient. Right now, it essentially rests with me, which is I'm fine with making the decision, but for some reason, if I were to say no and deny a permit, we don't really have a mechanism for the citizens to appeal that. And so this language here presents us an opportunity to just give the citizens a better, more appropriate appeals process, which is necessary as part of, administrating an organization, if that makes any sense. And so you see how that's done there. I think it goes to the city manager next, is the appeals process. We need to establish that and do a little bit better. And then finally, of note, 8-601, feeding wildlife prohibited. We're adding a proposal language in there that would prohibit the feeding of wildlife that includes the feeding of feral animals or cats. I think all of us at various times in the course of the last few years have had the issue of feral cats be brought to our attention and how to deal with it. There isn't really a good answer, but what this is designed to do is to try and discourage people from doing that. Because if you have a feral cat or two that shows up at your house and you start feeding it, that makes the problem worse. More cats show up. More cats, then they breed more, and it just makes the problem worse. So that is designed to help us sort of take some steps towards dealing with the feral cat issue by discouraging people from doing that. And there's a lot of folks that want to do that because they feel there's a little cat that's not being fed properly, but that makes the problem worse, and then we're dealing with complaints from the neighbors and that sort of thing. And so those are the highlights of the animal control ordinances. Again, I have Catalina's here to address any specific questions you might have cases. Les is here to talk about the calls that we deal with, but we feel like this language and these animal control changes to the ordinances would be helpful generally to us. There's no budget impact to it. It's all generally enforcement that goes to the court. So we're asking you to place an ordinance on first consideration that makes changes to the Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 8, the Animal Control and Regulations, and we'll answer whatever questions that you might have.
How do you permit a bee?
Believe it or not, there's a couple of folks in town that keep bees, and that's a thing, right, a hobby, or like a thing that people do for honey and that sort of thing, right? And so that came about 3 or 4 years ago when the neighbors were sort of complaining. And so there's a proper way to do it without putting people in jeopardy.
Permitting the hive or?
Yeah,
the-
so we did this not too long ago, and Julie may be able to remind it. So it's similar to having chickens, where you can have chickens, but they have to be X number of feet from the property line. They have to be, there's rules and regulations to having chickens. We had somebody come to the commission and say that we want you to do urban apiaries, which are beehives, but, so the city said, okay, but here are the rules and restrictions and regulations. And so if you're operating that, you have to do it within the rules and regulations, but we don't have a way to know whether you are keeping bees or not. Therefore, are you following the rules or not? If that makes sense.
And through the permitting process, they'll have restrictions, they'll have requirements that they'll have to meet. So when they would fill out their application, then animal control gets involved and they'll go out and see if it's an appropriate place for it. Like if it's a highly dense area where we've got a large population, it may not be a good location for having bees.
Because they're annoyed by the bees coming in and out, or?
I mean, it's an issue of health and safety. I mean, people who are allergic to bees, there can be a lot of other issues that can come with that, so.
You could get a kid that knocks over a beehive and now he gets stung 500 times.
Sure, okay, I didn't think about that, that makes sense. And then my next question is, so we're now making it illegal to feed cats?
Yes.
Yeah.
Feral cats.
Feral.
Yes.
Now, if they want to adopt the cat and take the cat into their home, they can still do that. But what they can't do is feed a whole bunch of cats in the neighborhood that result in more cats coming, resulting in a lot of complaints from the neighborhood.
They say these are my pets, and they aren't necessarily.
Does the Leavenworth County Humane Society, do they have say in this, or talk to them, or?
No.
Okay.
And how would you monitor that?
Yeah.
What's that?
How would you be able to monitor, like who's?
Well, we've had complaints, we've had complaints in the past
A
where
variety of complaints in the past.
where you've shown up. I believe they had some woman who was feeding multiple cats, leaving cat food outside. They knew who was doing it.
Right.
So that would be, right now, we have no way to prevent that, no way to enforce it.
And it makes it exponentially worse when you do that, because that's what happens, is 1 or 2 turn into 10, which turn into 20, and it turns into citizens complaining. I've been here when people have come and angry about feral cats, and they destroy flower beds, and they do all of these things. And so this is really sort of a first step in trying to discourage that.
We do the catch and release, don't we? Catch and spay and release?
No.
We don't do
We
that?
don't do that.
Okay.
We still aren't ready to do that yet.
And I've been a supervisor for about 10 years now. And over the last 5 years or so, I would say 50 to 60% of our calls are for cats. People complaining about cats.
Seriously?
More than dogs,
Really?
yes.
Wow.
Because people have 8, 9, 10 cats in their yard and they want them out of there. But if the neighbor's feeding them, they're never gonna leave.
And I don't think you would like the other alternative, which is for us to round them up and have to put them down. It's just, that's
You can't take them to the Humane Society, or?
so I think the Humane Society's been full
Full?
for
Okay.
2 years. And so, no, is the answer to that question.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around it being illegal to feed a cat.
Illegal is probably not the best way to
Well-
describe that, ma'am. It's much more like a traffic infraction, like if you were
Prohibited.
spending.
Okay, so what happens if someone gets caught feeding a cat?
They're likely to get a citation and get a fine. Did we establish?
Yeah, we're not seeking jail time. It's simply a fine.
Simply a fine. It's like a
There's a range on the fine. So,
parking violation.
Just start off with the warning.
yeah, like someone who's done it 10 times is gonna get a higher fine than someone who's first issue, so.
There are people in town that are feeding 30, 40, 50 feral cats right now. We don't have an ordinance. It's very hard to prove that they own those animals, so we can't. Right now, our hands are pretty well tied, that we can't do a lot about it.
But those cats that are permitted, like I had one that was permitted that lived outside and inside, but it was permitted and it was spayed.
Right.
So that's
And all we'd ask
that's
is
not
you-
feral.
No.
even though it's outside.
But all we'd ask is you would feed it inside.
We
Yeah,
don't
we
have
did.
a, we
We
don't
did.
charge
We did.
for running at large for cats, so
Okay.
cats are excluded from the running at large ordinance.
Right.
But you do have a limit on the number of pets you can have at your home.
We don't want to feed them outside because the skunks ate it too.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody else eats it too. Okay, that sounds good.
Too often feral cats become unfriendly. And you try to go and pet them, and the next thing you know, you've got a bite.
Is that,
Wouldn't want to
down
pet
by the
feral
community
cat.
center, someone was feeding cats for a long time? Is that like one
Yes.
of the hot spots?
Yep.
Yep.
That was one of them.
Is that still there? Has that been?
Yes.
I stuck to it better than I can.
Yes.
And right now, technically, we don't have an ordinance. I can't stop them from going down there and feeding cats, which brings raccoons, skunks, everything, into town
Keep breeding,
and
so.
keep breeding.
I'm good with this. We have consensus now.
Question. Section 8506. Yeah. D, the filing of an appeal under this subsection shall not stay any action taken pursuant to this chapter. I'm not a lawyer. Does that mean that if a judge says, yeah, I want it put down immediately, and somebody says, I want to appeal, is it going to?
We do not put animals down that have been, we've had cases where people have appealed. We wait until that process is completed.
We always wait.
But what it usually
Okay.
means is like in a situation where we have a dangerous animal, we will not allow them to keep that animal if they've been denied the permit. That animal cannot be in the city unless they win their appeal. So that means they have to find somewhere else to house it
Sure.
until the appeal is
Sure.
run. Those kind of things.
Okay, thank you.
I think it is good to make this more concise than what it has been.
Right.
Because I've heard some issues, so.
So I just asked for consensus.
Yes.
Mayor Martin, do you have anything?
No, ma'am, at this time. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just ask for consensus at this time.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I'm still not
I know.
loving it. I'll be honest. I'll reach out to the Humane Society. I mean, I feel like I need to talk to them, so.
Yeah.
Okay, we have our consensus. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, staff reports.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, we have a number of staff reports before you tonight. The first two, I think, will go pretty quickly, and then we'll turn it over to the Assistant City Manager. The first one is form of government and swearing in process discussion. If you'll remember, sometime last year, we had a discussion about sort of the form of government, and subsequent conversations have really narrowed that down into formalizing the informal process that we have now and selecting the mayor and mayor pro tem. As you know, city code states that the governing body shall select among them somebody to serve as the mayor and the mayor pro tem for the year. There is no exact stipulation on who that is, where they come from as far as the preceding election. And so tonight, the goal is that where we want to go, just the consensus, then we would bring back to you the fleshed out change in the ordinance. And the change would be that the mayor pro tem becomes the mayor, the highest vote getter in the preceding election becomes mayor pro tem, and then on the off election years, the other person who got the 4-year term would become mayor pro tem when the pro tem becomes mayor. So I know that seems like a lot, but if you follow it, it's pretty simple. And so we would just ask if there's any questions, if there's any comments related to that, and we would simply add that language which Mr. Waters has crafted. We updated a little bit since the item in your packet. The item in your packet didn't indicate that on the off election year, the second 4-year term would become mayor pro tem. But we would have to do that to keep it in. So next year, if Mayor Pro Tem Pittman becomes mayor, then at that point it would go to Commissioner Bowder, who had the 4-year term in the previous election, or whoever had that 4-year term. So that, I'd like to separate the two items and see if that's the direction we want to go on form of government. And then the other one is just a housekeeping of where we want to swear in. The swearing in code is the first Tuesday in December, which is something that the city can choose. We used to have that first Tuesday as a study session. We don't do that anymore. It doesn't matter, we can continue to call this a special meeting, it's kind of nice to swear in as a special meeting, give new commissioners a week before they have their full meeting, or we could change it to the first regular meeting in December, and then you would be sworn in and go into a regular meeting. We just need to get some direction from you, so those are the two issues on this discussion, so open up, and certainly the city attorney.
I'll add a little bit if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, first of all, as Paul said, I wouldn't pay too much credence necessarily to the version that's in your packet, because that was drafted, well before the 2023 elections, so there's already some language in there on that. You know, some of the things that I've been looking at as proposals, and again, Paul is right, we're looking for, I don't have the language to present to you this evening, but we work on it, but want to make sure we have a good understanding of whether something like this sounds good, so I'm just gonna kind of put out there at least what I had put together, and you all tell me whether this is not the direction you want or not. I've been keeping it at the 2-year and 4-year term, or the 4-year and the 2-year terms as we've had. Changes could include, again, changing the term commencements to the second Tuesday of December to line up now with your regular meeting schedules. And then also have that apply as to the date of termination of terms of office as well. I've also considered adding some language of order of proceeding. I think there could perhaps be some confusion, there has been in some cities, that, okay, it's your last meeting and my first meeting, do the new people sit down first, do the old people sit down first? How does that work? What I've seen in several cities do is that oftentimes the former commissioners will all gather and open up the meeting, and then there's an opportunity for their last statements, et cetera, and then there's the swearing in of the new ones. Because as Paul said, we can do it at other times or other ways as well, but that was an idea that I had at least. And again, as Paul mentioned, the major thrust of what we might put together would be if you want to codify what I'll call the tradition of the top vote getter becoming the mayor pro tem, moving into the mayor position, establishing the second top vote getter in those years, moving into what I'll call the next in line, mayor pro tem. Something that I would also recommend adding that you don't have is what happens if there are vacancies in any of those offices. If there's a vacancy in the office of the mayor, if there's a vacancy in the office of the mayor pro tem, how do those get filled? So I've got some language in there. Essentially, it would be, for in most cases, the mayor pro tem would move up to become the mayor. To the extent there is a second in line, that second line would move up to mayor pro tem. And if there's not then a second line, or if there's a need for one, there could be a vote of the commission to elect someone at that point. And I know that may not be ideal and always, but you have to have cases where if there is a death or resignation or someone moves out of the city, you do have to have at least some processes for backfilling those types of positions. So those are the ideas, but we're here tonight to maybe get some consensus from you as to what you would like to see presented.
Thank you.
I'd like to see that instead of giving an actual date, so we wouldn't have to change it in case we changed our meeting dates, regular meeting dates, have it as the first regular meeting in December instead of putting a date, a second or a first or whatever. Would that work?
So that's really up to the governing body. You would have that swearing in, and then you would go into a meeting, which is fine.
Yeah.
We've done that before.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I'm good with that.
some of the things that I'm just going to be devil's advocate a little bit here. Is that we want to avoid conflicts where we never end up having a first regular meeting because of politics for whatever reason. Lo and behold, that meeting never gets held in December in some way. So there can be some concern there. We probably want to make sure that aligns with what your code says about the ability to cancel meetings and such. And we'll just check and make sure that those two provisions are talking to each other in the right way.
I mean, I like the idea of the special meeting because you come in, you can, at that point, you can bring your family if they want to come. The old can say words and then it kind of the changing if that happens. That's kind of nice. And then no business, especially like my first time, I was a little nervous. I couldn't imagine going right into a business it happens, but I do like that. And then I definitely like the policy overall. I think it's good to put it in so it doesn't happen what happened to, last time to Jermaine, so it's actually written down. I like that, so I'm comfortable with that.
I kind of like the idea of having the old commission and the new commission
too.
so that you can have comments. I mean, I know when we've done it before, the old commissioners have come in and
that.
I remember when Mark Preisinger left and he talked and, and I think that's nice because you kind of close that out.
I agree.
So what, do that on the special meeting?
Well, whenever we switch it over. Like what.
I mean, it could
Doug was
happen,
saying.
I often see it I probably see it most commonly at the regular meeting.
Regular meeting, okay.
But that's completely up to you.
I think that's the way the school board did it too. I think they switched over at the regular meeting. Anyway, yeah,
Yeah,
I'd be
by,
okay with that.
I think by doing it at the first regular meeting of December, as opposed to a special meeting, you're keeping the, the staff and folks from having to come in
That's true.
for just that,
For that little
half an
short-
hour or whatever.
We certainly don't mind, I don't want that to
be the
determination.
Well, like I said,
appreciate the thought.
Yeah, it was like 10 minutes.
I experienced both.
Everybody left.
I experienced both. I think,
Would you like better?
honestly, like the special meeting, and actually give the people an opportunity to thank their constituents, supporters, families. Yeah, I prefer that.
I mean, you can certainly do that at a regular meeting as well.
Yeah, okay.
Before the
Another-
swearing in.
Another thing I do want to throw at you is the timing of, is that the effective date also of the new mayor and the new mayor pro tem? That's the new draft I have. I know there's been some that said, well, in this time, does that get sworn in and then the mayor thing maybe happens later on? But
Okay.
just starting all of that at that first meeting, the new commission comes in, and that is also the same night that the new mayor becomes the new mayor.
Is that a lot? I mean, is that?
I think that would be good, have it all at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no different than I suppose any other city where there's an elected mayor and a new mayor comes in, so. But again, that's.
Yeah, I personally
this is for you.
I don't see maybe a huge problem with that, doing it on the first regular meeting, going back to having family in or friends or whoever. I think that is still an option, for any meeting, so I would be cool with, consolidating it into the regular first meeting there.
We don't usually have a lot of business in December either, so I think it would be okay to put it all together.
Yeah, and I'm okay with the policy. I'm still a believer we should definitely have a mayor-like form of government, but I'm okay with this at this moment.
I think we have consensus.
I think so. What you will see will be different than this, so because we're gonna work some language in on the terms of office and when those commence and such as well. So they'll be a little bit different, so expect something, but we've got the language just about ready to go, I think.
Okay,
Sure,
we're
we
still good,
appreciate you codifying it.
Thank you.
and we're still good with the one-year term?
We looked at, or I tried to look at 2-year terms for those. I couldn't find a way to make the math work. By the time you got into, somebody had a 2-year pro tem and then a 2-year mayor and then elections and figuring out. I tried to schedule it out years, and I'll apologize, I used people's names as placeholders just to see what happened. I could not make it work out, at least on your current election cycles, with the 4-year and the 2-year terms. It was mathematically impossible for me to get it to work out.
But that makes sense, okay.
Okay.
All right.
There's always a situation where you're gonna have to then, you're gonna have to go off like a 2-year, and then there'd have to be a 1, and then followed by a 2, something like that, which, by the time I started drafting it to work, it was 5 pages longer than, it probably needed to be, and I still didn't get to a solution. It was kind of a never-ending problem.
So you'll work on this and then bring it back to us?
Yes,
Okay.
for first
We'll
consideration.
bring it back at a future meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah,
All
that's
right.
good, though. Thank you.
Goal setting?
So on the goal setting, I did just present the commission. I'm not looking for any, setting any dates tonight. I just wanted to put these in front of you. So over the next week, if you could look at, especially if we could focus on the March 22nd for the half-day goal setting. As you can see from this budget calendar, this also just gives you an idea of the process that staff goes through. We'll start departmental budget stuff basically February 1st. But in the next week, if I could get some feedback on the March 22nd, that's sort of the official kickoff of how we start organizing priorities for the budget, those commission goal setting sessions. So I wanted to highlight that. Let me know if that doesn't work, and I can coordinate that offline.
I've got all 3 dates on my calendar.
Yeah, I put
All
it on
right.
my calendar, so.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so just if Commissioner Wilson and Mayor Martin, if those work for you, let me know in the next couple days. And then I did want to also highlight May 21st, which is the study session. You'll see CIP budget meeting with City Commission, May 21st study session. So many years ago, we did the budget and the CIP completely separate. We actually did the budget in the fall and the CIP in the fall and the budget in the summer. We decided to consolidate those because it makes no sense. The CIP is part of the budget. But I think what we've lost a little bit is our ability to talk about projects. The CIP are parks projects, and they're the most visible aspects of the budget. The operating budget is the line items of commodities and electricity and stuff like that. And I feel, in talking to Roberta and Penny and the executive staff, we kind of rushed through the CIP on the first morning of the budget hearing. We don't have time, I don't feel like we give the commission and the public adequate time to decide, okay, here's Cody Park, for example, but what about the skate park? What about a disc golf at Havens? And so if we present a CIP, then you have time to get more feedback, you have time to think about these projects, you have time to come back and say, what about Havens? And we have more time to respond because the projects are what the community sees. This is where the splash park goes. This is where pickleball courts go in the CIP. So my plan is to reserve the May 21st study session well ahead of the budget meetings, and we'll present a draft CIP with sort of slotting in the recommendations, but then other projects that we've collected from you, and give the commission time to see those and then have time to maybe give some more feedback. And I just wanted to point that out because that is different.
Yep.
Okay. And then right now, and the other date, please let me know in the next couple weeks, is June 28th. That just tracks with previous years on the all-day budget meeting with City Commission and department heads. So don't need anything else tonight. I just want to make those dates known and the one shift on the CIP at the study session.
Great. All right, 2030 comprehensive plan update.
Penny?
I do have a PowerPoint, but don't worry, it's brief. Okay. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. As the city starts 2024 and approaching goal setting and budget discussions, it's a good time to provide a refresher on the comprehensive plan, which is the overall guiding document for the city. You'll recall that the development of the plan involves some of the highest amounts of community engagement, working with professional facilitators to identify the future vision of the city and steps toward achieving that vision. It was adopted in June of 2021, so potentially it's reviewed about every 10 years. The plan itself is 161 pages. I'm sure you all have a copy and have this memorized. And it has a high number of goals, strategies, and action items. It's organized into 6 broad chapters. My update tonight includes items submitted from all city departments about their actions taken the past year to achieve goals in the comprehensive plan. Many of these items were listed as specific local action items in the plan, and some were additional items that were not listed in the plan, but were efforts that supported listed goals. A great example is the Ride LV, which really wasn't envisioned when the comprehensive plan was worked on in 2019 and 2020, but does support the goal of improving transportation around the city. All actions listed reflect what the city was able to accomplish with existing resources and while also doing the everyday work of the city. Pothole repair and general traffic patrol are items not included really in the comprehensive plan, but an example of everyday operations. The speed which comprehensive plan action items are accomplished sometimes reflect the level of staffing and resources that are applied. And I hope now is my chance to brag a little bit about the city and what's been accomplished in 2023. You may occasionally hear comments from people about what they think the city should be doing on one particular area of interest, and they may be right, but if you read the 19 pages that were included in your packet, hopefully it shows the dedication of the governing body, city staff, and community partners to making Leavenworth an even better place. So these are taken from the 6 overarching chapters included in the comprehensive plan, and for the sake of time, I'll just provide a few brief updates. So community identity, which covers history, culture, preservation activities, and embracing all community members. The highlights from this past year included volunteers working on Greenwood Cemetery, holding tours and providing information. That was one of the listed local action items to protect and build community understanding of significant cultural and historic sites and resources. I'd also like to highlight this one because this really wasn't necessarily done by city staff. This was a project that supported comprehensive plan goals, but was done by volunteers, including the Leavenworth County Historical Society and the Daughters of the American Revolution. We also brought in the Kansas Department of Revenue to the Business Symposium to talk about 2 state tax credits that were available as an effort to improve historic preservation and buildings in the city. And the police department continued their Trust Talk initiative work, where the public has direct access to speak with officers and their leadership to express crime concerns. And this was a local action to support community dialogues to help all community members voice their concerns, find common ground, and set the stage for a more inclusive community. For the Built Environment chapter, the highlights I have listed is the $600,000 in federal ARPA funds that were provided to DePaul USA for the development of affordable housing. And that was a local action to ensure the number of available housing units aligns with workforce growth in the community. The city applied for and received a $400,000 grant for mill and overlay work on 4th Street between Reese and Poplar, which the local action item was to continue to use the Kansas Department of Transportation grant programs to restore pavement along KDOT routes. And Fire Station 1 was equipped with water-saving hot water circulating pump, which was a local action to consider incorporating energy-efficient improvements in green building strategies. So just as an example, I found a website that listed that a family of 4 would save 16,000 gallons of water by using this recirculating pump every year. And we definitely have more than 4 firefighters that work out of Fire Station 1, so that's definitely an improvement. In the Harmony with Nature category, Parks and Rec actually oversees working on this program. We had nonprofit organizations that volunteered every month in 2023 to do 3 Mile Creek cleanup, which meets the local action to assess the needs of local waterways. And the Economic Development Office discussed disaster mitigation with the Leavenworth County Emergency Management Office, and we plan in the future to present some of those resources and items to local businesses to help with disaster preparedness. In the Resilient Economy chapter, the Convention and Visitors Bureau met regularly with advisory committee to discuss better promoting tourism, which was a local action to promote Leavenworth's restaurants, retailers, and lodging through the CVB. And we also worked with LCDC to promote the Business and Technology Park. This was a local action item to continue promoting development of the park. And we continue to receive interest in the park and respond to requests for further information. The 5th chapter is the Healthy Community chapter. Again, I will highlight Ride LV not only for the transportation, but specifically for the transportation to physical and mental care, which was one of the listed local items to increase low or no-cost transportation options to healthcare facilities. The police department began work on a citizen service portal to allow citizens to file a police report from their home, which would lower the travel barrier for reporting crimes. And the fire department participated in a KCC steering committee on fire recruitment to ensure that we are recruiting and retaining a quality fire department force. The 6th chapter and the final chapter is land use and community design, and that is work that the Board of Zoning Appeals continued to look at variance requests, and the planning department considered opportunities to look at infill developments. So in closing, I'll leave you with 2 takeaways on the comprehensive plan. The first is that the City Commission ultimately sets the priorities. That's done through annual goal setting and through the allocation of resources during the budget process. And also that pursuing new items and programs can take time, and that's done in conjunction with regular work. That's everyday work of paying vendor invoices and answering phone calls and assisting the public. However, it's important we all continue finding ways to do the important work to move the city forward. With that, I'm available for any questions or comments you have about the Leavenworth Comprehensive Plan update.
Nice presentation, good job.
No, good, thank you.
How
I
did
think
you,
these updates are important.
how did you
See how we-
choose to do this, so many?
So this is enough, a full city departments participate in this.
We
So
need to
the
get you the
fire
plan.
department is
Yeah,
submitting their updates, the police department, the finance department. And sometimes this is a chance to see things that may not always be publicly visible. There's one in there where the finance department led an effort to, you recall, look at our debt borrowing and saving $175,000 in interest. Not a listed item, but definitely contributes to some of the goals. So those are things as staff looks at this and says, what are items we can take to accomplish this? Sometimes we are creative and find those options, and sometimes it's just getting the time and ability to do the next steps in the plan.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, food truck survey results, is that you as well?
That is me again. I have a
This was huge.
hopefully equally as brief PowerPoint on that one.
You had a lot of response.
Almost, was it over or almost 1,500 people?
33
Over.
pages of written comments.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a follow-up presentation from the December 19th study session where we initially looked at food trucks. At that session, we reviewed the current ordinances that apply to food trucks. And the long and the short of it is per city ordinance, food trucks are not allowed on city property, which includes street parking and in city-owned lots. There are exceptions to that if there's a special event. So if we close down a road and there's a special event, then they're allowed. They're also allowed in Haymarket Square, and they're allowed on private property. But this was a request prompted from Wilcott Brewing, who wanted to regularly park a food truck near their establishment to better support their patrons. And there's also been other requests for food trucks. So while the Wilcott request was the most recent, we've seen other requests like this in previous years. So in some ways, as we're looking at the ordinance, maybe it's time to include some of those requests and see if there's any desire to look at updates. So after that presentation, the commission requested feedback on the possibility of an ordinance update. In addition to those who may have reached out directly to city commissioners, staff opened up an online survey for 2 weeks in January to help gain input. Results are included in the packet. I will say a general disclaimer, it's a survey. So this was a general public survey to gain interest in the concept. This doesn't tell us if anyone may have participated more than once. We didn't have control over that. We can't say that everyone here lives in Leavenworth. It's a public survey, so folks from neighboring other areas or further away may have responded. And it also does not identify those who might be the most impacted if there were to be ordinance changes. And I think of current restaurants, and I think of those who park next to their downtown loft. However, I would say generally we did get a really good response rate for this survey. And we received good comments. It seemed like those who took the time to comment had some thoughtful responses and were certainly items to consider. So I want to thank those who participated in the survey. So the first two questions were relatively straightforward, just again to gauge feedback. The first one was, would you support allowing a food truck in on-street parking or a city-owned parking lot for less than 5 hours occasionally for a special event? And of the 1,549 that responded, as you can see, an overwhelming majority supported that as a general concept. There were 69 who were not in favor of that. And then the second question was, would you support allowing a food truck in on-street parking for longer than 5 hours and multiple days per week? So there was still general support for this, although there was a higher number of no's, 215. And then the third question was open-ended and requested concerns or questions. So the 33 pages are included. What I did find interesting is that some people commented they supported food trucks because they were small business, or they could become a small business in the future. So I found that to be interesting feedback from the survey. I will also say, while the survey generally mirrored the results from questions 1 and 2, there were some interesting trends. I'm gonna grab one of these days I'll grab my water when I'm walking up here, excuse me. So there was a high number of those in the survey who were both for and against food trucks that all said something about they were concerned about brick and mortar restaurants. That came through whether they said, I don't want it because I think it's going to be a threat to brick and mortar, or they said, I think it's a great idea, but I don't want it to affect the brick and mortar. So that certainly came through in the comments. There were also several comments, something like, as long as it doesn't impact downtown businesses and activity. So there certainly were just stated concerns in questions, how that might work. Other questions and concerns were for those concerned about parking. So some of those who were for food trucks said, this is great as long as it doesn't take up my parking place. Okay, and some said, I don't want this because it might take up parking places, so that's a consideration. Traffic and safety was also a concern, thoughts about driving around a food truck if it's on the street. There was different comments about length of time and number of days. Some suggested this would be a good idea on quieter days downtown, like Sunday or Monday, or during hours when few restaurants were open. Location was mentioned, not parking directly outside a restaurant, and wanting food trucks to be an enhancement rather than competition to existing businesses. I would say the current ordinance does say not within 100 feet of a brick and mortar restaurant during their open hours unless you have written permission. So some of that may be included in the current ordinance. And then other trends, comments and concerns were in trash and health or food handling. There's actually quite a large number of those. I will also share that the city does have a food truck license that requires the food truck to collect and dispose of all trash. And that license also requires state of Kansas food establishment license, the food handling permit, and the health permit. That's done to the clerk's office. So there is sort of city oversight that they're doing their necessary health items for that. All this feedback should be helpful should the commission desire to pursue changing the ordinance. Potentially some of these negative impacts and concerns might be mitigated. As an example, there might be areas where it's not conducive for food truck parking due to pedestrian crossing or due to the popularity of public parking. Delaware Street specifically was mentioned several times. In the comments, you'll see that. There may also be days or days of the week or times that this might or might not work better to enhance activity. And it might make sense to consider some sort of fee structure to cover the cost of a private business using taxpayer-funded and maintained city property, which may address some of those concerns about fairness that were listed in the comments. I do have examples from other cities of what they've allowed on city property and what type of restrictions that they've put into place. So I'll just mention a few briefly. Emporia allows food trucks in one designated city parking lot, but only on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Otherwise, they're not allowed on city property. Wichita doesn't have specific locations, but has criteria for allowing a food truck parking, which included flow of street traffic, not blocking bike routes, and maintaining ADA accessibility of 5 feet on the sidewalk. Shawnee only allowed on-street parking and prohibited blocking traffic signals or signage. Edgerton allowed food truck parking in the right-of-way, but only in pre-approved locations, and it can't impede traffic. And Salina actually identified designated food truck parking places in their downtown that must be used during the day, and they defined that, I think it was 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. After that time, 10 p.m. to 2 p.m., they can park on the street as long as they're not blocking traffic. So with that update, staff is looking for commission feedback and guidance on whether to further pursue ordinance changes, and if so, what that might look like. Short-term, multiple days, parking lots, on the street. We do have a large downtown, which might mean that there are several areas this might be difficult to implement. We also have a large downtown, so this might mean that there are opportunities to consider the addition of food trucks in certain circumstances. Staff can bring back further information or sample updates to the commission to consider. And with those specifics, we could work with Main Street and the Chamber to gain more specific feedback from them. Maybe that's, a formal letter of their thoughts on this. Or the commission can also decide that current ordinances are sufficient. We allow parking on private property, it's allowed as part of a special event process with a road closure, and it's allowed in Haymarket Square. So with that, I will be available for questions and turn it over to the commission for discussion.
Can you send us the other cities that you got?
Yep,
I think that's an interesting thing to look at more closely. See how it's working with them. Good. Yeah.
Do you know why Emporia selected those days? Saturday, Sunday, and Monday? Okay.
I don't know.
I was just curious on that.
In my head, I thought the Salina, that's what I thought, Salina made sense for us because we have a big downtown. So that kind of clicked with me. I do love the Main Street and the Chamber, and also maybe some feedback from those brick and mortars. And I don't know if we do that as a city or if Main Street can do that for you, but definitely want to hear from them. But I would like to move
When
forward.
you say brick and mortar, you mean brick and mortar food
Restaurants.
establishments?
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, I should.
We also, it's not just about downtown either. I mean, we've got a whole city. So
Right.
there's other places that, like where the old plaza was, or, if you had a special thing out there where you had, I'm thinking of like San Francisco when they had a place in the park that, the food trucks came and they were there every day.
Truck festival.
But
The reason I mentioned downtown was because that was the Wilcott-specific request, and that was also some of the requests that we had seen in past years. It was mostly in the downtown.
Okay.
Usually other areas, there might be some private parking that's
We need to
utilized.
think about that too, if somebody has to have it somewhere else.
I noticed the unique suggestion that somebody made, park the food trucks in front of the vacant stores, the vacant storefronts. And I thought, wow, what a thought, So you don't see, if you're a visitor, drive down the street. But at the same time, my thought is that while we do have a pretty large downtown, we don't have the super wide streets.
No, and it's an
For it.
angle.
And then I think Delaware's the only one that has angled parking, isn't it?
Yeah, it's only one-way street as well.
Yeah. But yeah, we don't have the wide streets that we need. Possibly our parking lots, and we've got a good number of parking lots. My thought is parking lots is a good place to put them. And we can allow them to do a few things there as long as they're not just, God bless you.
Thank you.
As long as they're not just, trying to take over half the parking lot with, tables and chairs and waste baskets here and there, that wouldn't work. They have to stay to doing what they're doing. Is it possible to get some information on Chick-fil-A as to why did they stop coming here?
I could certainly reach out and ask.
They got cold.
My basic understanding was they were from out of city, so they weren't a
Yeah,
local
they weren't
food
from
truck.
in here.
They may have been coming in from Lawrence, so.
Yeah, I don't know where they were coming from.
Yeah, they were coming in from Lawrence.
Okay. It was interesting, they were here, and they stopped coming in the fall. It wasn't when it just because of the cold. So, I'd be interested in knowing, okay.
Well, I asked the guy if they were looking at, their traffic here and seeing if maybe they wanted to open a store, but
Brick and mortar?
he didn't really know. He had his own thing and he didn't really know what the company was looking at.
Mayor Martin, do you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you, ma'am. I definitely just a few thoughts. I think to just kind of address some of the citizens' concerns on the feedback they gave. I think there's definitely advantages and disadvantages to both brick and mortar and, food truck. I think just, they just hit, seasons affect things, being able to go inside, sit down somewhere, parking, convenience. I mean, it's all different factors. And I think definitely competition can be a really great thing. But, I'm also not for any trucks that would be blocking, impeding traffic, blocking any signs anywhere, anything that's going to have a direct negative impact on any other, businesses around, food or not. And so, definitely I'm okay with looking at even a phased-in approach if we, want to change anything up to allow a little bit more leeway when you have, kind of the situation like Wilcott that brought up, looking at accommodating that. I don't know what the best fit might be for making that work. And I know this isn't like a decision overnight, but those are just some of my initial thoughts right there.
Thank you. Okay.
I guess I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just about to ask, so are we going in the direction of getting feedback from Main Street?
Yeah, I'd like to sort of nail down the consensus. So the consensus is a little bit of more formal feedback from our partners. Try to do the best we can on bricks and mortar restaurants, getting some feedback there. And then what do we want? Do we want to stop there and then bring back another staff report? And then at that point decide whether we want to get into on-street or not, city parking lots or not, restrictions or not.
Those. I think if I can look at those closer and see how they have those.
The cities,
The cities, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll put together further information for you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Move into the consent agenda. Commissioner Hengela?
Mr. Mayor, Madam
Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I move that the commission approve the claims for January 5th, 2024 through January 18th, 2024 in the amount of $1,183,403.34. Net amount for payroll number 1 effective January 12th, 2024 in the amount of $427,614.59. No police and fire pension.
Second.
All right, second. All right, we'll begin voting with Mayor Martin.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Let's just go around the room first. Okay.
All right, well, we'll go around and have anyone have anything to say. We'll start with, oh, you first. Okay.
Yeah, just real quick on the
Learning,
request for the support for the LAVTR. I did want to point out LAVTR is already been adopted as the position of the commission when we adopted the League of Kansas Municipalities. So the state legislator, as required by statute, should fund the local ad valorem tax reduction program. If you would like staff to put together a general letter of support related to this, and talking to the city attorney, it's my professional opinion that there's no downside to that. If it's brought back, then certainly we would benefit from that. If it's not, then so be it. That'd just be a continuation of the years past. I'd look for any consensus from the commission or comments. Otherwise, I could put together, working with the template, a support letter from the city.
Yes, I think it's
Yes.
important.
Yeah.
Just other quick notes. I know it's a hot item. The pickleball court project, the Cody Park Sports Court project, bids open on February 6th for that project. And then we'll see, the plan would be to bring it back on February 13th, the regular meeting, but you gotta wait to see what the bids open, if there's any irregularity. So I just wanted to bring that up as well.
Oh,
So
that's a
that's
big
all I
one.
have tonight. Thank you.
Now do I go to Commissioner Bowder? No.
Hi.
Whoever. Wherever.
Mayor Martin.
Okay.
Martin?
Mayor Martin?
All right, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate that. No major comments tonight. Just hope everybody has a great week, and we'll see you next week.
No, we won't. The next meeting isn't next week.
No, our next meeting would be
Yeah.
February 13th, I believe. What?
Oh, that's correct, yep.
Tuesday,
My bad.
first Tuesday, so
I'll talk to you all soon.
Tuesday.
Good. I hope everybody has a safe and comfortable rest of this time in January and the beginning of February. Enjoy it, stay warm, and keep shoveling.
I don't have anything to add to that.
Yes, I would like to have a discussion to see if we can get a consensus amongst the commission to discuss the funding that's already in the CIP for Southside Park, to see if we can have a discussion of possibly moving that funding over to the skate park. There's been a lot of emails, phone calls, questions from the skate community. Really would like to move forward when investing the resources that we have allocated for Southside Park and moving it over to the skate park, if we can have a discussion.
Since it's already in the budget that way, what do we have to do to change that?
To move it?
Fully up to the commission. So there's a line item for Southside Park. It would, of course, come back to the commission, so it's the full commission discretion on what to do with those funds.
Okay,
So consensus for
Yeah, I'm game
discussion?
to look at it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I'm willing to look at it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Other than that, God bless you, love you, be safe, and enjoy your January.
Well, I want to thank you all for having grace and patience with me tonight as I go through this agenda. So thank you very much, and thanks for my veterans for pointing me in the right direction. So I appreciate that.
Did great.
You're doing great.
I believe God has a plan, and tonight He put me in this seat because I get to thank Jermaine Wilson for serving as mayor for last year.
Appreciate it.
You did an amazing job. So many things that you did last year, and some things that off the top of my head, you were there for the groundbreaking of the federal prison. You entertained those great delegation from Wagga Wagga. You had fun with them. And then you also are always great with the international officers when they come. And there's so many things that you do. You are so dedicated to our community. I am thrilled to call you my brother, my friend, and now my fellow commissioner. So congratulations on an amazing year.
I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you.
Give it a hug. Great, thank you. Speech.
And I always want to start off thanking my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. It's always an honor and a privilege to be able to be in this position to serve and represent all people. I want to thank my beautiful wife, Jessica Wilson, for allowing me the opportunity to serve. My family, my mom and dad for always believing in me. And then to the community, to the constituents that supported me through the thick and thin, who didn't judge me based upon my past, see me as the person that I am, and just always been faithful and committed to supporting me in everything that I do. Definitely want to thank Madam Mayor, Holly Pittman, my sister, and then the commissioners. Thank you all for just making me better. It's not one person, it's a team. And, the things that we're accomplishing for this community, it takes teamwork. And we all have been unified in spirit to serve and make a difference. And we're doing great things for the city of Leavenworth. And I thank you, Mr. Paul Kramer, city manager, for just always listening to me, allowing me to be able to express my concerns and frustrations. But thank you for just for always being a great leader and representing our community as well. And then my sister Sarah, thank you for all of those mayor awards, man. A lot, writing up for me. So, yeah. But man, thank you all. God bless you all. Love you, and I appreciate you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Jermaine.
Thank you, Jermaine.
Appreciate you.
Yay, yay.
With that, I will call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All right, and then this meeting's adjourned. Do I bang it again?
We all say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Aye.
Hi.